We're back.
We are back.
Episode 2.
Deuces.
Or actually, it's kind of 3 because we had the 9 video.
Oh, the 9 video, yeah. So the podcast. We should probably put that in the link in the description.
It was pretty good. It was pretty fun. I was sleepy on that one, but more energy.
Man, that was the late night one.
Yeah, it was
That's one of those nights you just talk.
Yeah.
We didn't feel like recording.
Exactly. So now we're back today, and we're here to talk about patriotism.
Patriotism.
Overly excessive patriotism.
Or maybe even underly excessive patriotism. And I know you think you hear me say that, and you think like, what is he talking about? And that's exactly what you should think, because there's no such thing. I feel like I don't know. I feel like there's either overly or just like regular. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't hear people being like under patriot or unpatriotic, I guess would be the term. You know what I mean? Go ahead, Zach. Something that you feel strongly about. I'm not too patriotic because I'm not from the United States. So.
Well, right now, I don't even want to say with the Kaepernick situation, because it seems as though, throughout my lifespan, maybe every decade, half decade or so, there's either an event or a series of events that lead people to start waving their flags around. And people just think that for some reason their country is being undermined or being taken from under them, or someone is just trying to knock their boots off, figuratively speaking. And I think that right now, that's kind of happening. Excuse me, guys. It's kind of happening. We got the whole NFL thing going on. You got it being boycotted from two sides.
Talk about that two sides, man.
Yeah,
talk about the two sides. Let me hear this.
So we've got, initially, we had a lot of people who happened to, I guess, feel as though they were supporting Kaepernick not having a quarterback job. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which, it's arguable. Kaepernick, he should be, I feel like, a quarterback in the league. Maybe not a starter, but he should be a quarterback in the league. There's quarterbacks who are worse than him that have positions. But people were taking that and saying they were going to boycott the NFL. And I understand it, from that regard, but I think that there's so many institutions that make racist decisions that if you did that in the United States, truthfully and honestly, you'd have no entertainment, you'd be poor, you'd be hungry, you'd have no clothes. You wouldn't have anything if you boycotted.
Preach to them. If you boycotted what?
If you boycotted organizations that are not fair to people who stand up,
or minorities,
or
just in general.
Yeah, people who will chastise you.
I tell you what,
for standing up
our
against
audience, like name a couple.
Well, we have. And I don't have any political affiliation, so forget these corporations. I can talk about it. I was gonna say, I was gonna say I'll hold from talking about them, but let's talk about it. I recently went to the Black Museum in D.C., whatever, the National Museum of Black Cultural Americans, whatever the name of it is.
I had a friend that went to that one. Yeah.
The one that looks like a bird's nest or whatever it is upside down. I went to that museum, and I saw, just as I saw Dr. Boyce Watkins on his review, just as he said, I saw the same thing. I saw an overly abundant tribute to entertainers. And entertainers are cool. There's a lot of black entertainers, don't get me wrong. But in that, I'll say that in that museum, there was almost a shrine to Nike.
Nike.
What the hell does Nike have to do with black people?
History.
Yeah, with black history. Nothing. But yet there's Nikes and Air Jordans and Air Force Ones and all this stuff is in there.
Sidebar, when I first heard about Air Force Ones, I actually thought that they were like some sort of plane. I didn't know, like when I first came up here, the hype was Air Force Ones. This was probably back in like 2000, I don't know, 4, maybe 5, like And that was the hype, man. Air Force Ones, and I was like, bro, I don't know what. You got some forces on. I was like, what? Go ahead, though.
And yeah, I mean, and you know, back to that, Nike. I mean, I would say that this is a company that exemplifies that because you have, I mean, you know, of course, in Nike, you have tons of, you know, people working in countries that are underprivileged, you know, in sweatshops, you know, building these $100+ shoes, $200 shoes for
Little or nothing.
less than minimum wage over
for
here,
sure.
you know, for 5 cents and
They
you know
work for
10
pesos,
cents.
man.
Exactly. These people are over here, you know, doing, you know, they're doing this, and these conditions are terrible. And if you really care about humanity, and you really care about people, and you really are a social justice warrior, you really care about people's well-being, you're not boycotting companies like this that are paying people not even livable wages to make things that they sell to you for $200, and you're so stuck on this status symbol BS that you're like, oh, look at my Nikes, oh, look at this nice stuff that I got on, aren't I so cool and all this type of stuff. You're so stuck in what other people think, this manufactured reality. You're so stuck in this that you don't even see or care about anything that's not in front of your face. You let it go behind you, and you know you're not fighting. But I'm not saying you have to fight for anything, but I'm saying if you're gonna fight for one thing, just do it across the board. Fight across the board. I mean, I would say that, you know, Nike's one of them. They pay these guys, you know, less than nothing. I mean, you got a lot of people. Like, another thing that Nike does. This is one thing that's lesser talked about, and we're gonna, in this show, we're gonna dig really deep into it.
Really?
Now,
I don't even know. Tell me.
There's a basketball player, kind of famous. I don't think you might have heard of him.
I don't
named
think
LeBron James.
LeBron James.
Yeah.
LBJ.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look like not Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Okay.
But,
I was like, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, LeBron James. One thing I noticed, and other people won't talk about it, but I'll talk about this. LeBron James. I remember at one point, maybe it was a few years ago, LeBron James had really stepped up his activism and put his activist hat on.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron James was wearing "I Can't Breathe" shirts.
Mm-hmm. LeBron
LeBron James was playing basketball out of his mind. He was talking about issues.
Right.
He was doing all kinds of stuff. LeBron James was on it. LeBron James was a mark. He was a model athlete, and I could do nothing but respect him as far as what he was doing then. Fast forward maybe a few weeks or so later, news came out that LeBron James signs a lifetime deal with Nike for over $1 billion. So this is a lifetime contract with Nike.
Mm-hmm.
Lifetime. The biggest contract of an athlete
Yeah.
for endorsement ever in history. I'm sure you guys might have heard of this.
He beat out Michael Jordan.
Yes, the biggest in history. And then, a few weeks after that, LeBron James was asked about Tamir Rice, a situation about a boy who happened in Cleveland, where he was playing. This Tamir Rice situation.
No, where he's from.
Where he's from.
Where he's from.
It happened in Cleveland, where I'm sure you guys saw Tamir Rice, a little boy, playing in the outside of his neighborhood. You know, police pull up, hop on the car and shoot him. Like, I mean, that's the whole video. I mean, it's not funny, but it's just, you know, that's what happens. He just, little boy playing in the street, cops hop on the car and shoot him.
Okay.
Like, you know, just immediately with no.
Yeah, no.
I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah, okay.
LeBron James has obviously seen this video.
Right, and he obviously knows that it went on in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, if LeBron James is on social media, LeBron James sees when Kyrie Irving goes on ESPN. You know, LeBron James, he's not, it's off season. You know what I'm saying? Like, he sees this, he knows what's going on. But when he was asked to comment about it, LeBron James said, I don't know enough about it to speak about it. I don't know. I can't talk about that. I can't speak about it. I don't have enough information. I don't have the facts. He said, but LeBron, you're not gonna stand up for Tamir Rice and his rights and all this? I don't know. I don't know what happened.
So you're suggesting that some way the deal with Nike limited or maybe he was nervous that he signed this deal and he could not express himself because he's on Nike's payroll.
Because I have no association with Nike and I'm not controlled by any companies, I can freely say that I am pretty certain that I can convict Nike in being the culprit for LeBron James becoming docile.
Oh, yeah.
Because he wasn't on that type of time before.
Okay. You see, I don't keep up with sports in the same way that you do.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been a big sports fan, so I can't speak for LeBron James and what he was doing. But you know, I take you at your word, and this is coming from someone. I like this dynamic that we have because if we both know the same things, then it seems like we are somehow, you know, patting each other on the back. We're yes men. You know what I mean? Whereas I know nothing about LeBron James and what he was doing. You pay attention to sports. That's like something that you enjoy. That's something that you bet on. So if I take you at your word, and so you're telling me that a black man in today's society that understands that we are undereducated, underpaid, underprivileged, right? He gets into a deal with said company, Nike, and all of a sudden changes his mindset or his public opinion. So you're telling me that Nike is like, yeah, you can say what you want at your house, but on television we don't need you sprouting that. Oh, why would they do that? What do they gain? What does Nike gain by doing that?
It's not much as much about what they gain as what they don't lose. And I mean, in preventing loss is a gain. And when I say that, I mean they want to control their acts and their athletes. I mean, people spoke. I mean, you know, when you're offering $1 billion, that doesn't come without constraints. You know, no one's been given $1 billion without any constraints placed on it. You know, it's like, hey, take this $1 billion just because you're such a great guy. You know, we like you, buddy.
Okay, we like you, buddy.
You know, okay. But so I mean, there's going to be something that goes along, and not knocking LeBron because he initially stood up, and I'm sure there's not a lot of people who could make a decision in face of getting offered that type of money. I don't know. I've never been offered $1 billion. I mean, I don't know what. I mean, I like to believe that I'm firm in my principles.
Right. And you would never bend them.
Yeah, and I wouldn't bend them, but I mean, $1 billion is $1 billion.
But here's the thing, right? And this comes down to, I don't want people to think that we're bad mouthing LeBron. We're talking about a problem that goes past LeBron, deeper than LeBron. So let's hit it right on the head. And I kind of don't know how to approach it, but honestly, it's in my mind. Would I take $1 billion, even though I'm already a successful athlete? Why not just expose Nike? You see what I'm saying? Why not? Okay, LeBron could come out and say, "Hey, I made a deal with Nike, and in this deal, they forbade me to speak publicly about black people, and the reason they did that was because yada 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 yada." Now, you may get lawsuit, you may get sued, you may get this, you may get that because you broke contract, right? But at the same time, you expose the underlying racism, and people get killed for that. I believe people get killed. If you try to expose the system, you can be exterminated.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons.
And they don't have to kill you to exterminate you.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of reasons behind that. I mean, first of all, they didn't. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be in his contract, which it could very well be. But I mean, there could have been just a little strong arming tactics. You know, I mean, just kind of innuendos. You know, kind of little comments made about, you know, hey, you know, you just got a big contract, didn't you? You know, I mean, I would hate to see that go away. You know what I mean? Just words like that, and people can kind of subtly let you know that they mean business without, you know, quite committing to playing ball, you know, figuratively speaking. And for him to exposure, I mean, it takes a different type of person to be willing to give their life, you know, or give their livelihood, you know, for a certain cause. And I mean, some people, you know, are in it, you know, partially in it, kind of in it. But when you're willing to give your life for it, it's a different breed. That's your fight.
Man.
Some people don't have that kind of fight in them, and I'm not knocking people for not having that.
I think most people don't. Because
No,
I
they don't.
sit here and think, I'm like,
If they did, the world would be different.
would I give my life right now? I'm a black man.
Yeah.
And I think, would I give my life to making everyone else's better and make my life miserable? My family's life miserable. The people that depend on me from day to day.
If people were truly altruistic, then society would be in a much better place. Like, we would have a phenomenal utopia. But, I mean, it's proven that people aren't, generally speaking, by the worldly condition. I mean, just by the condition of the world, by the fact that we have billionaires. You know, something that we had talked about earlier. The fact that there are so many billionaires, and there are more billionaires than there have ever been, to me is not a good thing. The number of billionaires is a direct diagnosis of the perils of society. The number of billionaires. I think there's an inverse relationship between the number of billionaires and the well-being of society.
Okay, but I'm gonna stop you right there. For those of you that don't know, Zach is a statistician. So, you know, in statistics, we always call people out. We say causation.
Correlation is not causation.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I'm saying is, you're saying that they're correlated, and I'm saying, okay, but can you show that there's a cause?
It calls for
a cause for it. So we say correlation doesn't equal causation,
Yeah.
but we're suggesting that there is a cause.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
We're suggesting that there is a cause.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so for the viewers, we always want to explain things to you from our personal opinions. And so dive into it, man. What's one of the causes? You don't have to name all of them. What do you think is the biggest one?
The biggest cause for why
you think that there's an inverse relationship between billionaires and...
Well, given that, I mean, we have fiat money right now, and even though right now money's being printed, you know, at such a rate to where it shouldn't, to where it doesn't retain value, the concept of money is, you know, money is kind of built under a guise that it's a medium of exchange, and it's a medium of exchange that retains value because that medium of exchange is limited, or that medium, or whatever that medium of exchange represents, is limited. It retains its value because of its limited, because of its rarity. That's why gold is supposed to be rare. People have to find gold, diamonds, precious jewels, things like that. They're supposed to be limited. Now, it's limited. Mm-hmm. And the fact that money is supposed to be limited, the fact that money's supposed to be limited, you know, which is this whole, supposed to be, it's, you know, one of its main value. Was how it retains its value. That means that there's only so much to go around.
It's finite.
Yeah, and if there's only so much that goes around, and of course we've seen over the years, I mean, you don't have to be a statistics guy, you don't have to be a numbers guy to see that the population's been growing for a long time.
Right. Okay.
The population is growing, but the disparity between the upper class and the lower class is also growing. The amount of money that the rich have is growing. The amount of money that the poor have is shrinking because it's being distributed amongst a wider range of people. There's a larger range of people
in that group.
Exactly, in that group that have less money to go around. People like to say, "Oh, you know, we're middle class. We're middle class." Middle class is relative. Middle class is a term. It's really, I mean, middle class, upper class, lower class, and all that. That's all a term that comes from statistics. It comes from, you know, mean, median, mode. Mm-hmm. You know, your middle class is like I would say, like, probably that first standard deviation out. Okay. You know, like from the mean, or you know, or it could be from the median. I mean, you probably want to say the median because it's, you know, you're looking at people and the amount that they have. If you use the mean, it will be highly skewed. And,
right. Most people don't use the mean. Yeah.
So if we use the median, I mean, you know, whatever that median,
whatever the middle number is.
Whatever that median income is, I mean, and we looked at what's out there. I mean, yeah, we're splitting the population up, but you're not gonna get people aren't gonna be where they think they are. People aren't gonna be where they think they are.
So they think that they're middle class, but they're not.
Exactly, and I mean, people in media and all this, they can give you a certain perception. They can give you an idea and make you think.
They do give you. It's not that they can. They do. They will.
Exactly, and and I mean, just to go back to this whole the number of billionaires thing. If money's limited and there's people there's people who control larger amounts of it, so large amounts of it that they have no function for it. There's no functional use for $20 billion. You just have it.
To say that you have it, to say how much you're worth.
Oh, I bought 7 mansions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but nobody lives in 6 of them. It's like,
what are you doing?
Yeah, what do you? It sounds stupid to me when there's poor people in the world. When there's people dying. I mean, doesn't.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be that you give to people that are dying or give to people that are poor. What you do is you educate, or you can educate the students, the professors. You can give your money to places that will, in turn, carry on your dream.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So if I'm a billionaire, I'm thinking, okay, like, how can I use my money to where I don't benefit, but the world benefits? I think that's the biggest problem. So if we get back to that Nike conversation, it's like, is Nike using their influence for themselves, or are they using it to make the world a better place? Now, I think the answer is obvious when we start talking about, the whole LeBron James, publicly speaking about things that matter in his own community, in his backyard,
Well, and you're gonna, and don't get me wrong, you're gonna get people, we're probably gonna get people in the comments section who come in and try to vouch for Nike warriors who say, hey, but Nike has charitable organizations. Nike donated so much money to that Black Cultural Arts or African American Museum of History and Life and Celebration. They'll say that Nike donated so much money to that. Nike did this. Nike did that. And my answer to that is, come on. Like, I mean, corporations, every companies, they're required to give to charity. I mean, they're required to donate money. They're required to do things, and donating, giving back, and all this kind of stuff does not wash away your sins. I mean, it doesn't negate anything. I mean, you could. I mean, it's like a serial killer or something. Like he goes out, he kills people's loved ones, but he writes a book about it, and then he makes millions off the book, and then he goes and gives the family $5 million. It's like, I mean, I guess it's cool. Right. I mean, thanks for the $5 million, but you still killed my relative, and maybe I think my relative's life is worth more than $5 million.
Or you can't, or I feel like you can't put a dollar value
exactly
on a human life. Let's get back kind of into the economics of that, though. Talking about Nike, and we said it doesn't erase their wrongdoings. If we talk about their wrongdoings, you talk about them kind of excavating or taking advantage of exploiting these other countries where they can have sweatshops. We complain here in America about people from other places coming here to work. But really and truly, it's these companies that put factories in their own in their country, in their home country. So we have people from Mexico that come here to work. They may have came here because guess what? The factory, the Nike factory in Mexico, it has, you either work there or you don't have any work. You know what I mean? Because it takes a lot to run these factories. You know what I mean? You get paid little or nothing, and you're like, okay, well, if I'm gonna work for Nike, I might as well go to America and just cut grass. Like, you know what I mean? It beats. I'm in the sweatshop anyway. They don't have AC. That's why they call it a sweatshop, in case nobody knew, right? Exactly. I might as well be outside cutting grass, $20 a lawn, like that's much better than working in the Nike factory where I don't get paid anything. And then these same shoes that I make are turned around and sold for $150 a pop. No one talks about, that aspect of Nike, because that's a very, very real aspect. And if you think about it, big business, and you said it, Zach, what does big business do? Runs America.
Yep, it runs America. And I mean, once again, like, don't take this as just Nike, because there's a lot of other corporations out there doing shady stuff, and you all can get this work. Like, I mean, and
you said you all can get this work.
The thing is, I mean, and I'm not, it's not even just.
It's not a shot at Nike. It's not like we're bitter.
Yeah, and it's not even just to bash them. It's just to say that, I mean, the people who are coming out and going against the NFL. I mean, I hate to get religious with it, but just like Jesus, he was without sin cast the first stone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and not even to say that it's that people are casting stones as sinners, but to say that you're condemning one group and completely ignoring the others. Yeah, I mean, it's like people just like I mean, it's just. You'll be able to find, if you do your research, you'll be able to find dirt on a lot of these places.
So where does patriotism fit in with all of this that we just discussed?
Right now, this wave of patriotism, with the wave of patriotism comes an invaluable rule of the flag and all things the flag, or the surface level of the flag. People supposedly, say that they, are so loving of America and that they see all things American as so great and, so wonderful and, all this good stuff. But they don't necessarily attempt, or they might attempt. I don't know what the whole cause is. They might attempt, but then ignore, or they might be being perverse. I don't know what they're actually doing, but the people, they come out and they act as if they don't see what's going on. They don't see the reason.
Or they don't comprehend.
Exactly. And the thing is, comprehension, you have to talk to someone, and directly, to know whether or not they truly comprehend something. Because, I mean, you don't know if there's perversion at play. People kind of ignore perversion as a means of doing something, or as a reasoning behind doing something, because people like to look at things through a crystal clear lens. Once again, people like to see people as having the same moral compass or the same moral responsibility as them, and they're like, oh,
and that links us together. It's a liaison. Now we are connected somehow.
Exactly.
And we should now find someone else to make a third, and find someone else to make a fourth, and that's how you create the party system, we could call it. Okay. I agree with that, and I think that one of the biggest things that people that are patriots or over patriotic, they do is that they conveniently label. So, for instance, I had a friend. We went to school together a long time ago. And we're still friends on Facebook, and he had a post, and in this post, and this is him being patriotic, he served in the military, he's done his duty, he takes care of his wife, his kids, I always respect people that do that, regardless of whether I know you, I don't know your dynamic at home, but from what I can see, you're a respectable member of society, and so I cannot just tell you off, you know what I mean, because I respect you, and I wouldn't do that, but he said, and I may misquote it, but basically that what happened in Charlottesville, or whatever that was. He said that the neo-Nazis are a bad plague, right? That need to be taken care of. And he said, but he feels like the Black Lives Matter movement is tearing the country apart, because and this is the funniest thing, and I read his whole shebang, And I said, they're not tearing the country apart. What they're doing is they're bringing to light things that no one wants to hear, no one wants to see. So when you have someone that is over patriotic, I feel like that over patrioticness is a bulldozer to cover up something that they either don't want to talk about, don't want to discuss, or they feel like it's not right to talk about it as if over the American flag.
Yes.
So you can't take down the American flag and say, hey, how about equal rights and then the American flag? You can't take down the American flag and say, you know what, how about we discuss these police brutality cases over the American flag? And as soon as we have an issue about anything, it doesn't even have to be race. It just happens that it is race, one of the biggest issues here in America. The white elephant in every room in America and throughout the world. Like, let's just be real. Like, race is a thing, whether we want it to be or not. As soon as that trumps the American flag, and it's funny that I use the word Trump, as soon as that trumps the American flag, people have issues.
Yep. People don't want to, just like you're, to add to that, people don't want to talk about things that make them have to take accountability. When people have to see themselves and people have to be accountable, it's, whoa, wait a minute.
Or they may just disagree because that's not the life that they live. They may not be racist. And so, or they don't see the day-to-day racism that we're talking about.
Because, and the thing is, one thing that adds to that, people, I don't think people are as stupid as they try to pretend to be, because people act as if they don't know that they benefit from the labors, or, whether they're labors or atrocities or whatever that you want to call them, of their ancestors. So, you may or may not, like, so for example, if, my father, takes out some bad loan or whatever, for, $1 million or something, he can't pay it, and they're pursuing him, and he happens to pass away, they're going to come after me. About it.
Were you a co-signer?
About fulfilling this debt, because, they have to find somewhere to recover this. And you, whether you like it or not, it's an inconvenient truth, like that Al Gore movie. It's the inconvenient truth that you benefit from the labors of your ancestors, and whatever they did, whatever their atrocities are, you bear that. Not to say you're fully responsible, but you bear that. You bear that burden. Mm-hmm. That burden is on you. That burden is a mark on you.
So let me make it real, because I feel like making it real is the realest thing that we do on this show. And to make it real to you guys, to show you how your parents' decisions affect you, your grandparents' decisions affect you. If your mom or dad has an outside child while, they're already married and together, or a stepbrother or stepsister, or they get divorced and remarry, your family dynamics change, and they can never be put back to the way that they were. Now, take that family dynamic, and let's say your dad gets fired. Take that family dynamic and think about your dad losing a leg, serving in the military. Your life will completely change for a generation, because you're their grandkids. So your dad gets his leg blown off, and your kids, right now, they talk about grandpa and ask him, "Hey, grandpa, what happened to your leg?" And that's something that they have to live with. That's something that they learn. That's something that they acquire. Something that they use, right? That is how wealth works as well. It works the same way. That's how power works. That's how. I hate to use the word because I can't find a better word. Unprivileged. That's how privilege works, but that's also how privilege, the people without privilege work. You know what I mean? If I never had anything, if my grandparents never had anything, and what do they give mine? What do they give my dad? Nothing. And if my dad never had anything to begin with, and he doesn't make anything for himself, what do I have? Nothing. I'm born into nothing. You know what I mean? And that's making it real. I feel like that's where we are.
Yeah, and I mean, it's easy. I mean, the easiest thing to do is to dismiss something, or attempt to ignore it, attempt to pretend as if it didn't happen. I mean, a lot of things have happened, and I mean, there were things that were promised because of it. There was, I mean, I think Obama was the president, or there was Bush or somebody who issued the formal apology for slavery or whatever, which is nothing. Like, what is a formal apology? Like, I mean, that doesn't change anything. It doesn't help anything. It's systematic. I mean, slavery was something that was incredibly systematic, and that affects the world to this day. It's just an apology doesn't do it. I mean, there was 40 acres and a mule was one thing that was talked about that was never given. I mean, there's some people who are still proponents of it. Dr. Claude Anderson, he's still a proponent for that.
Still a proponent.
Yeah, I mean, if it could happen, if it could happen, then great. I mean, I think if someone is going to try to do the work to try to do it, I mean, I think that it could very well be a losing battle where you just waste all your time trying to get it to happen and
But you give your life for it, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah, but I mean, it could happen. There's a very small possibility that it could happen, and that would be great.
What would you do with 40 acres and a mule?
Well, this is one thing that I talked about. People said, how would that translate now? Now, 40 acres and a mule. You have to look at what 40 acres and a mule was, or what it represented. It represented farmland and a mule to till and plow that land to have it prepared for farming. Now, in these days, of course, a mule is not practical. But what is practical in terms of farmland, or what would be the equivalent of that?
1 acre high rise?
No, well, this is what I said. What would be equivalent is, instead of a mule, you have what? You have a tractor. A tractor would till that land, but some people would opt to not get the land. What could you get? The equivalent value of a tractor. The equivalent value of a tractor right now goes for about $150,000, $200,000, maybe $250,000. That's the mule part. So the mule, let's say $200,000, $250,000, whatever. Right. Now they have 40 acres. Let's look at 40 acres.
We could just stop right there and talk about, who's going to give black people that money? I mean, because what we're talking about is giving people that were not given that money, that acreage and that mule, cash compensation. And that's just not talking about black people, that's talking about the Indians. That's talking about all of the minorities that were represented at the time.
Well,
that was a thing.
You see, what the thing is with the Indians, or I mean, I hate to call them Indians because they're not Indians, but like the natives. I mean, what they were given, reservation land and casinos, but why? You have to look at why they were given that. And you want to know my opinion of why they were given that? Because they were killed, they were exterminated, they were genocided. That's the word, genocide. They hate to use the word genocide because it convicts them and makes them feel guilty, but there was a genocide. Even if you look on Wikipedia, if you look at the genocides that happened, let's ignore the American genocide and let's call it something else. Let's call it that they got smallpox and we gave them blankets and stuff, and who knows, whatever they call the nonsense. You wiped out the Indians, white people in America. That's what your ancestors did. You killed the Indians. You wiped out their race. You exterminated them. You did worse than the Holocaust. You exterminated the Native Americans. And
did worse than the Holocaust?
Yeah, it's definitely worse. Now, you exterminated...
We're gonna come back to that.
You exterminated the Native Americans, and there's who knows? Let me say this. There might be 200,000 left, 100,000. And when you only have 100,000 left, why not give them some land? Why not give them some casinos? Hey, I mean, there's 100,000 of them. I mean, we got enough money to give 100,000 people, a casino and some land. But with black people, there's 13% of the population. 13% of the population? Wait, there's 300 million people here, so that's 45, 50 million people. We can't give 50 million people all this stuff. That's too much. That's too much to give. We can't do that. No, let's resist. Let's make up. Let's give red tape. Let's make up stuff. Let's say, oh, we can't do this because of this. Oh,
Like
that was the past. Oh, get over it.
Mhm.
And you're not
Acts to
affected.
help people.
Yeah. Oh, you're not affected
Civil
by
rights
your ancestors. Yeah. Let's make this silly civil rights law. Oh, let's do all this political stuff. Oh, let's make a stupid museum. Oh, let's say, okay, finally give Martin Luther King a holiday after Stevie Wonder had to make a song about it. Oh, let's do this. Let's give Martin Luther King a terrible statue in D.C. that's not finished, that looks bad. It's a horrible statue. I mean, I went there and I think Martin Luther King deserves good stuff. But this statue is bad, and I mean, none of it undoes anything. There is no edit undo button.
But you see that edit and undo button. Let me tell you honestly, Zach, and this is what I believe. Like, I believe this so strongly. I want you guys to listen. So I don't want my viewers or our viewers to even get I guess offended when we start getting hype and we come at you like that, because this is what we feel, man. And there's truth to it. And this is what I want to tell you guys. So this is my belief, and Zach hit it on point, and it hurts to say it, but genocide is the way that you describe what happened to the Native Americans. It is, and here is the problem, and we've talked about this, but on a different subject, Zach, and you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about as I explain to the viewers. You have a string. The string represents black people. You put a knot in it. We call it slavery. The knot is tied. You rub your hand. The string is still fine, but there's a bump, right? Every year that slavery happened, we tie a knot. Every year. And each slave uprisings, let's say we tie one knot. We tie one knot for each atrocity or misunderstanding or murder or lynching or public celebration of just outright racism, just at church whipping people. You know what I mean? We tie a knot for each one of those. You know what I mean? And we get to the point to where we are now, right? You know how you said there is no apology, there is no backtrack. The problem is there is nothing that they can do that will fix this thread anymore. Thread is no longer good. You can't do anything with this thread. This thread is a mountain. You know what I mean? How do you sew with a mountain? You don't. You can't. There's nothing that you can do with a mountain. All it can do is sit. All it can do is be there. All you do is look at it. You know what I mean? And so, how do you approach a problem when there's so many knots? You can't undo the knots. You know how fine string is? So imagine just having a big conglomerate of just string, like just one big knot that you know is just like a million knots all put together. And you got two little bitty pieces of string at one end, and then the whole big thing is a knot. How do you undo it? And the question is, the answer to that is, you can't. You can't fix it. And we talked about this in relation to relationships. We talked about it as in that if you do that to your relationship and you try to keep going, so you're like, you know what? Let's forget about this and let's start over here. It's not gonna work. It can't work, because you can't just make more string out of nothing. You know why? Because there's so much string that's tied up in this, right? And so that to me is the problem here in America, is that they wrote the Indians off, the Native Americans, whatever you want to call them, the people that lived here first. They literally handed them a check. You know what I mean? The Israelites, the whatever you want to call them. You know what I mean? After the Holocaust, what did they get? What did they get, Zach? They got a country from someone else. They didn't get
a country that had absolutely nothing to do with
right
the
with,
events.
with the events. Right,
Yeah.
they got their own like country. Like you just Israel. It's on a map. Like any map, and they always have fighting over there. We're not even gonna get into that.
Yeah, we're not
you
gonna
know,
touch that.
yeah, we're not gonna touch it. But you look at black people and where we are, you know, as just a people, you know, and there is nothing that can be given to us in that sense, because they can't give us the world, and that's what we deserve. You know what I mean? If you think about it. We deserve the world, and it can't be given to us, because that would mean that there's no place for the people already running the world. No one is that selfless. No one is that selfless.
I agree.
And so I think that as an African American man, you know, that's from the Caribbean, that you know, I have all my, you know, places that I've lived, all that stuff. I know that there's nothing that can be done. I can't change it. So I just have to, knowing that, I stand up and I live my life the way I see fit. And I stop asking and begging, hey, listen to my problems. Yeah. Listen to my pain. Because guess what? You can hear me, you cannot hear me. But there's still, at the end of the day, there's nothing that you can do to fix it.
Well, and then that's the thing, is it may not be able to be fixed, as in, you know, returned back to the original state that it was at before it was damaged. However, I mean, there are things that can be done to patch. I mean, it's all about the proper patch, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, if someone is shot with an AK-47, or, you know, shot with some, you know, huge gun, you know, some type of huge gun several times. Yeah, exactly. You can't give. I mean, you can't give them 2 Band-Aids and say, you know, here you go. I mean, that's not the proper patch.
Right. That's not etiquette.
Yeah, that's not the proper fix.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's what America has done to black people. Black people have been shot with AK-47s and 50 cals several times, and America gave them some Band-Aids. They gave a little small micro Band-Aids.
Bro, you see the and since we're using that analogy,
Civil Rights Act, it's a little mini Band-Aid.
Yeah, but of course it's a Band-Aid. It might not even be a Band-Aid. It might be like a little tourniquet, like, you know, like just like some, just like apply pressure here, exactly. But you got to apply your own pressure. Yeah. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is that the survival rate, and listen to what I'm about to say, the survival rate of being shot with multiple times by a 50 cal, like, I'm pretty sure there's like less than, like, I don't know, 1 person. You get shot twice with a 50 cal. Like, first of all, you get shot in your arm with a 50 cal. Your arm is gone, right? So, I mean, if you get shot again, like, how did you live? You know what I mean? If you get shot twice. So the biggest thing is that I look at society and you see black people dying. We're dying. And I mean in the sense that it's kind of like, and maybe there's gonna be a rebirth, but we're dying. We're not. I'm not saying that we're literally dying, like, you know what I mean, like there's less and less and less and less and less and less black people. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that as a culture, you know what I mean, we're losing depth. As a culture, there is no longer, we don't have roots. You know what I mean? We've forgotten just how to be decent people, man. It's we're dying, and the system is in place to kill us, and maybe we do, because I feel like, you know, we don't band together. We don't. We fight. We argue. We do all of these things, and no matter what anyone says, oh, it's the system, it's this, it's that. Yeah, man. But guess what? Guess what the trick of it all is, man? regardless of all of that, all they're doing is exploiting what you had on the inside.
But see, and I mean, to add to that, we don't stick together. And I mean, a lot of it, at least in my opinion, is from the fact that we were systematically destroyed as a people, even mentally.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say mentally, I mean to where, you know, a lot of these values that we've held, you know, these stupid values, you know, like, you know, people light skin, dark skin argument, you know, permed hair and all this, you know, straight hair, and like all these kind of things that have separated people in the black community. Well, this was a superficial nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people still hold on to, and they're seen as stupid. I mean, they're just stupid roadblocks and dumb battles. I mean, every now and then I always see like black people come and have a dumb battle that prevents them from having, or just us actually, I mean, I would say, I mean, from having true progress, because we're sitting here fighting these superficial, stupid battles.
Are you frustrated with 2017 black people?
No, because I was frustrated with black people before that, but I think that black people are making progress. I feel like there is a pseudo awakening. I think that it's not a quasi awakening. Let's call it a quasi awakening.
Further away from pseudo, more quasi. I prefer quasi.
Yes, a quasi awakening, because it's not quite a full awakening yet, but it's got the fabric.
Yeah,
it's got the fabric,
the underlying framework.
It's got the fabric of an awakening, and I think that that's good. I think that some of the things that are happening are bad. Some of the awakening, I think it's bad. I think that the intergenderal issues in black culture, I think that that's a
big issue.
I think a lot of them are. I think that if whatever has ground should be discussed and should be worked out, especially on a platform where individuals agree with how they should be treated and how their relationship should go. I mean, we'll talk about that in a relationship thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that an intergender struggle should take the energy away from what should be or what has been becoming a unified race in a larger struggle against a real oppressor or a real oppressive society.
But here's the thing, and I want to touch on this, man, because this is like some mind blowing stuff that I just thought about since you brought that up. We feed off of each other. You know that. You said it's you suggested, and if we were making this assumption, it starts at gender, right? And then we get our genders to work together, right? And from our genders, we go to our race. And from our race, we look at the people that have oppressed our race. But we always make it sound like once we fix that, it's all gonna be good. It's all gonna be gravy. You know what I mean? That's how we make it sound. Like what happens when there isn't gender struggles or race wars, and my personal belief is that we will create somehow something else. It's almost like the laws of chaos dictate that as we fix one problem, another one appears. Like that's what life is, and that's a cycle that people don't see. You know what I mean? There will always be something else. You know what I mean? Because 400 years ago, black slavery wasn't even a thing. You know what I mean? And so you look at it and you're like, okay, so this is the circle that we're going through, and in a millennia, the struggle may be completely different. You know what I mean? And so what determines how great of a society we are?
And you mean like Black America?
Black America, or just yeah. Well, yes, we're talking about Black America now because that's what we're in. We're in.
So one thing I think Black America has done and continues to do on a lesser scale now than it was at one point. I was like, okay, this is kind of disgusting, but I mean, to some aspects of it. But you plead mercy to power. That's what Black people have done a lot. Is pleading mercy to power. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just, hey, you know, I mean, look, you've done this to us. Stop. Can you stop doing this to us? Hey, you did this. Can you do this? Hey, you've done this. Can you do this? When you plead mercy to power,
that empowers the power.
It empowers the power, and the decisions are going to come on the terms of the power. So you're never going to get the picture that you want or the way you want, because it's always going to get twisted and red taped out. So it's like if you say, hey, look, we want equal, you know, we want
free food.
Yeah, we want equal schooling. You know, like, so they did Brown versus Board of Education, all this. We want to be in the same schools. We want equal schooling. It's like, okay, gavel. But there's caveats. You know, there's caveats. There's caveats that come. I mean, you come into equal school, but I mean, are you ready? I mean, were the teachers at your separate but equal school, I mean, were they qualified? Had they been to the same colleges as the teachers at the other schools? Were you getting the same education at home? Were you getting the reinforcement? Were your parents able to check your homework? You know, were your parents there? Did they have to work all the time? Were they, you know, being indentured servants?
Zach, what's gonna matter to me is how quickly can we overcome what's gonna make us great, or what's gonna make us or break us is how quickly we can overcome the struggle that is put in front of us. Because I feel like this is an epic struggle, and what determines how great our society is going to be in the time frame that it has left. Because we talked about this. We said that all great things come to an end, and then there's like a reset process, and then something else happens. You know, so how do we make, and I hate to phrase this like this, but it's like, how do we make society great? Not again, but how do we make it great? Because it hasn't been to that point yet. Not in our lifetimes. Not in any of the histories that we've read. Maybe a couple of history books. You know, just talking about in the lifespan of, we talking the American system. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Our struggle from the beginning, you know, has been race, genocide, taking advantage of the weak. How are we going to correct those things? Those are the struggles that America has been given, and so far we're not doing good, man. You see these fat people just walking around, man, and it's not. It looks like the 7 deadly sins have taken over, man.
We'll see, and you know, like you were saying, you're saying how do we do that? It'll be a real, you know, process. And I mean, honestly, I think it's gonna have to come by. I hate to use the big F word, but force. And I don't want to elaborate as to what that force would have to be. I think that's for, you know, some other conversation. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there's gonna have to be some sort of,
because you think that the people in power are corrupt. And they won't let it slide that the world is coming together to be a better place. Because we're not just talking about Black people. We're talking about, you know, the disparity between rich and poor. We're talking about, you know, why some countries don't have water, while we over here wasting gallons, son, gallons. You know what I mean? And
people, I mean, you gotta look at what has happened historically. I mean, and you gotta kind of judge situations based on, you know, what has happened in the past. I mean, we all know what, you know, has happened and what continues to happen, mm-hmm. you know, over time. I mean, you know, if you look at it like this, so like, even one thing I see is like how things are even conveyed to us. Things are conveyed in an untrue manner. like, so for example, like when people speak about slavery, they'll say that these slaves were already slaves and they were bought. A lot of slaves were bought from slave owners in Africa and all this type of stuff, which they call them slaves. Some people, now this is what the situation actually was. Some of the people were in a situation where they were held captive via wars between tribes, or there were people who were being held because of crimes they committed. So they were technically in like a prison holding.
Mm-hmm.
But no one was a real slave like slaves we had here in America. No one. It wasn't nearly the same situation where you have to work for me for hours on end and you get whipped and forced to do this and all that type of stuff. It was a informal prison. That's what it was. There were a lot of informal prisoners that this happened to. Yet it's being conveyed a certain way. One of the biggest problems in America, and what continues to be one of the biggest problems, is history class. History class from school. I'm condemning the whole subject. Like U.S. history, and more particularly, the way that history is taught, it's taught from a victor's perspective. It's taught from a perspective.
You gotta stop, Zach. You gotta stop right there, because guess what?
What?
The spoils of war dictate that whoever wins writes the history.
That's very true.
And so, the reason, and let me tell you, we touched on this, but we didn't really touch on it, and now we're about to just like say it, and then we're gonna end this video because this shit is super long.
But I mean, it's getting that information. It's getting it out there. I mean, it's that real people need to know.
I mean, look, man. I'm not trying to keep you guys here all day.
I mean, if people want, we can put a B. We can make it on the B roll if they, if they want the B roll, they keep it.
Let me tell you, man. Capitalism is more successful than any other just socioeconomic, political construct, because it dictates the same thing, that feral instinct that we talked about. You know what I mean? So think about it like this. If the winners get to write the history books, then the winners should also get to do whatever they want to the losers. And so you see the dog eat dog, right? The same thing that capitalism produces. It's like, okay, I won the war, like I can do whatever I want, or I enslaved these people, I beat these people, I murdered all the Native Americans, I'm gonna just take their land. You do things because you can. You get away with things because you can.
Well, I think they were murdered for the purpose of their land to be.
But that's what I mean. Like and so capitalism is as big as it's ever been because it feeds the consumer. And listen to that word, the consumer.
That's where that manifestation.
Like exactly. We are literally eating up, right? We eat it. We feed into this capitalist society where we just, it's not only is it history, it's race, it's everything. It's all aspects of our lives because our political construct called capitalism, right? Feeds into what it's a representation of what we are on the inside, man. We are capitalists. You know what I mean? As human beings, like it's unnatural. Like you hear about communism, you hear about socialism, and you're just like, yeah, why would I want that? Like, why can't I have everything that I want?
Because we become
because it feeds our soul. It sounds so bad, man. We feed our soul by only caring about it. Yep. I'm number one. I'm number two. I'm number three. I'm number four. I'm number five.
And that's just like you said, and that's how that's how all this stuff comes up. And just to go back to that history, I mean, and how it comes from that, just like you said, it's written in that manner. And if anyone who's not white takes history in any school here in America, they get a false perception, and they are made to be less confident and feel inferior if they didn't have any strong foundation at home to let them know who they really are and let them know their real power inside. If there was no one at home reinforcing the power of their culture, the power of them inside, and all they had to go off of was a history class in America, then they're in bad shape.
It's not bad shape. You see, Zach, that's politically incorrect. They're just not as in shape as the kids who share the same race, who share the same, I'm about to say gender. Because guess what? We are addressing, right, humanity, and we break them into races. But we can never forget that wherever a man stands, a woman cringes. That's what I like to say. You know, if a man is standing, you know, we could be the same height. They could be the same. They're technically just as tall as us. You know what I mean? I'm just talking like, but it's like they cringe. They will always have less than us. It's just how society works. I'm not saying that I'm not a feminist. That's just how it's all. I feel like how it'll always be. And I hate to say that, but that's just how it is. You know what I mean? It's very rare that I can be in a relationship or I can have some. I'm heterosexual and she's heterosexual, and she somehow is like over me, and when she talks to me, she's like talking down.
So you're making that comparison. You're putting like the races and genders kind of like as a parallel.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. I feel like what we're talking about is humanity and how we feed into consumerism, right? And we're talking about, okay, well, how do we fix that problem? But once that problem is fixed, then we have the gender problem to talk about. You know what I mean? It's like it's like we're getting attacked on all different fronts. It's like there's no possible way to completely fix the race issue, right? Because then all we have is just one piece of the pie. You know what I mean? I feel like we have to expand ourselves in a circular motion to get to where we want to get. And I feel like a lot of times, most of the times, women are overlooked. They just are. They are. You know. We talk about women's rights. We talk about them being able to vote, suffrage, just all of these things. But it's kind of like I, as a man, feel like I push it under the rug. Like,
no, it definitely.
You know
and I mean, especially black women encounter a lot of issues. I mean, they encounter microaggressions at work and. And just in many places, like, I mean, the workplace especially, and because they don't physically command the same respect that a black man commands, then it's much harder for them because, people might say, okay, I don't want to hear a mouth and all this kind of stuff. I'm not about the black women, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they might physically be the threat. With a black man, there's still the fact that, hey, this guy might be able to kick my ass, so let me hold it off. But black women, they kind of sometimes have to go through some things that we don't have to necessarily experience, and we're privileged.
We just can't experience.
We're privileged.
We're more privileged to
not have to experience those things. But before we dive into this, I want to go back to history.
Back to history.
I just want to say that the way that these classes are taught, the way things come out, you would look at it and you would see things as, hey, I mean, there was a bunch of savages chilling everywhere, and then there was white Europeans, and then the white Europeans said, hey, you know what? Let's go here and give these savages some civilization, and then
give them Christianity,
and then they did this everywhere on the whole map. Western Europeans went through the map and played the game of Risk and World Monopoly. Everywhere. They went to the whole map and killed, raped, destroyed, pillaged, stolen. They did despicable things to the whole map. But that's not how history, class portrays it. History class is like, oh yeah, they they traveled, and they looking for spices, and they found spices, and they found trade routes, and then they went in, they met some people, and some guys didn't like them, and sometimes they'd have to fight.
Here's my question.
And and all this type of stuff. But when it comes down to it, the ultimate right, manifest destiny, eminent domain happened, and the white Western European man won, and now the world is his.
How would you do it differently?
I'm going to tell you. Like, if you look at history books, you look at things like word choice. Word choice is an overly overshadowed aspect, yet amazingly important going on in Libya and Syria and all these places. When you looked at the news headlines, it would say things like 5 targets hit. It would say 20 targets hit. Look at the word choice. Why did they use the word target? The word target was picked because they want to reduce people and places to military targets. To the fact that we targeted this, people look at it and people read, oh, they hit some targets. They didn't hit targets, they hit people. They killed people. Tons of people were killed. And the thing is, the word target was used. That word choice was intentional. And I mean, if you look at a headline, whatever, before they killed Gaddafi, you would say, Gaddafi's still defiant. Defiant? Defiant that's word choice. Defiant. When you're defiant, then that would imply that someone has authority to influence, to make and shape your decisions. Mm-hmm. I can't defy you if you have no authority over me. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you're asserting authority over a leader of a country when he's the leader of that country. I mean, that's another thing. But to speak about it in the context of these
word choice,
these books and history, this word choice, the way things are written is bullshit. If you look at things like in school, I don't know if you didn't grow up. Did you go to high school in America, in the U.S.?
Yeah.
You went to high school in the U.S. here.
Yeah.
You learn about things like manifest destiny.
Okay.
Manifest destiny is probably the biggest crock of bullshit that I've ever read about in school, ever learned about, that's never been educatively examined. Manifest destiny says that our founding fathers have
felt the need to go,
have felt the need, and have known, and it's been our duty, and it's been blessed upon us that it's our destiny to spread from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and from north to south. What? That flies? That flies? Like, that's cool. They can just be taught, and it can just be taught, as
I remember being tested. What is manifest destiny?
It can be just taught. It's just like, hey, this is something that makes sense. This is something that's normal. This is something that was in play. This is why America grew to what it was, because of manifest destiny. Manifest destiny was a bullshit excuse for going and genociding the Indians, the Native Americans. No, it's just a bunch of crock of shit that was written.
But you see, that's post. Chance said it. It's post currency pre-lingual. You see what I mean? Like, what you're talking about is the fact that they wrote those history books after it already happened, right? So now they look at it and they're like, okay, like, we kind of murdered them. How do we make it look good? And we're like, you know what? Our country goes from east to west. Like, we literally went in that direction. Why don't we just call the idea manifest destiny and make the Indians a small part of what was happening? And you see, like,
it wasn't. And when in school, you don't learn about. It wasn't a small part when it happened in school. You don't learn about the Indian Removal Act.
Right.
You don't learn about things like this. You and if it is taught, it's glossed over.
Mm-hmm.
Just like everything that's bad happens to be glossed over. Even in that Black American Museum of Civil Rights and History and Life and Cultural Arts, or whatever it was, they glossed over the real stuff, the serious stuff. And let's talk about James Brown. And like it's just listen to this music. Oh, y'all want to dance? Look, it's a dancing exhibit up here. Look, Black people know y'all love to dance. Oh,
they had
look, it's a basketball court. Like I mean, I'm just saying, like it's
like, man,
it's just a distraction. But you gloss over the atrocities, and in those history books, I've even seen, I don't know if you've seen, they have like some kid with assignment, like they talk about slavery. They're like, slavery was a thing that happened in the United States where some people worked for low wages and they helped build America. That was the whole section in the history book on slavery. That was it. Like it's really disgusting. I mean, the fact that school is supposed to be where you really learn stuff, and you're not learning it. You're being given a praise of all these POSs. I mean, you're praising all these people, and all of them were terrible people. All of them, not just Columbus. All of them were terrible. These founding fathers, they're not my father. They're POSs. All of them. Every last one. All your ancestors are POSs. White people. Sorry.
That is okay. So I'm gonna take over Zach's rant, and I'm gonna say this because I am more politically correct than Zach is, and I'm gonna say that is true. It's so true. What I don't let happen though is hatred. So one thing that I am not a firm believer in, because I've seen this happen within my family, and even in other families, you learn to hate because your parents hate. You learn to love how your parents love. You learn a lot of things from the people that are around you, right? And one thing that I have learned, it was like amazing to me that I was able to learn this way. I always looked at myself and looked at other people and looked at myself and looked at other people. What was the difference? And so, yes, man, your ancestors are pieces of shit. You know what I mean? They are. But that doesn't mean that, I have a friend, Jace, and his great, just put 64 greats in there. You know what I mean? Could have been, I don't know, like Ku Klux Klan founder.
It ain't that many greats.
Yeah, I know. I'm being over. I'm just being out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Could have started the Ku Klux Klan, man. I don't know. But guess what? I don't judge him based on that, man. I judge him based on our current friendship.
Yeah, and I'm not saying, of course I'm not saying to judge people. I'm saying that the way that the books are written,
it makes them seem like they're nice people.
Makes them no, they're not nice people. It makes them seem like
heroes?
They are heroes, and like they are. They all
Avengers?
have. They have monuments and all this type of stuff. They already have monuments. Their own money. They have parks. They have roads. They have roads.
They have roads.
They have roads. They have parks. What else? They have everything.
Yeah, everything.
Everything is dedicated to them.
It is dedicated to them.
And I mean,
we went to A&M. There's a whole bunch of people at A&M.
It's all dedicated to these POSs.
That's real, man.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that that these individuals are.
Here is what they see us trying to do. They see us as so imagine if that's your dad up there, right? So I'm saying, take down that picture of your dad, please, because guess what? Although he treated you all nice and stuff, he tried to rape my mom. You know what I mean? That's what we're telling them, and they were like, my dad was like the best of dad. He provided for us. We were a family together. Although he broke up your family, all they can do is understand their personal lives, and that's all they care to do, because guess what? Capitalism. You see, we categorize everything.
Yeah.
We do. We try to categorize. Okay, well, this is our political system. This is our economy. This is our social constructs. This is my personal life. Doesn't work that way, man. It's all in one. So when you have a problem with one thing, guess what? You got a problem with 4 things, and that's how we need to fix the problem. It has to be it's everything. It's not just one thing.
But check this out. But in any situation, let me ask you this. This is a question. Okay. In any situation, when there's a conundrum or when there's a conflict in views, what do you do? Now, let me put this in context. Let's say, for example, you're in a room, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're in a room, and there's you and another person,
okay,
right?
Yes, sir.
And you guys both can feel the temperature.
Okay.
You have the temperature down. You want it to be cold. There's another person in the room. That person says, "Hey, look, I have a condition to where if it gets under a certain temperature, then I'm going to get really sick and I'm going to have to go to the hospital."
Right.
Does your comfort outweigh that person's well-being? Does your idea, does how you look at something or how you feel about it outweigh when someone's safety is being jeopardized or someone's mental state or something else is being influenced? In my opinion, you have to go with whatever is the most extreme or whatever is causing the most effect.
The
right?
most damage.
Yeah, the most damage. So, for example, if I'm in my car and I like to listen to loud music, but somebody has a bad eardrum, and they're like, "Can you not play it? Because, I mean, my eardrum is going to get affected or whatever, and it's going to, like the doctor said, I could lose my hearing." I don't want them to lose their hearing, even though I like to listen to loud music. I don't want them to lose their hearing, so unfortunately, I'm going to have to turn my music down. You feel what I'm saying?
Zach, your point is valid, but just because it's valid doesn't mean that it can be applied to the real world, and that's the problem, right? In us being logical people, right? We find logical ways to fix practical solutions. The problem with logic is that people don't care about what's better for the community. People don't care what's better for it. Because guess what? If I'm listening to loud music and there's 150 people on the bus, everyone likes loud music and there's one person that can get hurt. One person. So everyone likes loud music and there's one person on that bus that's just like, "Can you guys like not have a headache? I really feel really bad and like, can you guys just not?" What happens? Now double it. Now triple it.
Depends on what the expectation is for that situation or that circumstance. For example, if that person came to a place where the expectation is noise and they're complaining about it, then, I mean, they're not warranted because they're in a place where the expectation is noise. But if that person's in a place where the expectation is quiet, like in a library or something, where the expectation is peace and quiet, then,
that's not practical, because guess what? If I walk in, let's say I'm out, let's say in downtown, this has happened to me, and this is a funny story, and I'm going to tell you exactly how it happened. I was in downtown Denver. I love Denver. And this was our last night there. Well, not my last night. It was my best friend's last night. And we were out together, and we saw this church. So, yeah, what was I?
And you saw the church.
Oh, yeah. So we saw the church in downtown Denver. And so what we did was we pulled up, and my friend was like, "I think it's a club," And so we go in, you know what I mean? And it's just like, we walk in, the guys, there's a big bouncer outside, we're just like, all right, we're going to go in, we show him our ID, we walk in, and it was like, we walk in, and we're like, it's kind of dark in here, you know what I mean? And so we keep walking in, and like, all of a sudden, like, we see the dance floor, and it's like a whole bunch of Gothic people, and they're doing like dances that I've never seen on a dance floor done. Like, it was like out of like a music video. Like, I was just like, oh my goodness. Immediately I felt uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And so I say that to say, they could have been having a Ku Klux Klan meeting in there, and I could have just walked in and been like, you know what I mean? Just like everyone turns around and looks at me, they realize that I'm a black person, and
But what's the setting is what I'm asking, because this setting is an event, whether they're shooting a music video or whether they're having a satanic tribute or whatever, or exorcism or whatever it was, whatever they were having, you intruded on their territory. So there's no you don't have any expectation of quiet or worship or peace or whatever, whatever your expectation was going in there. You don't have any expectation when you're coming to someone else's function. Now, in public places or things like that, your expectation might be different. But in a situation like that, when you stumbled in there, I mean, that wasn't a public event, apparently. Right. That was something where your expectation would not be,
Right. But what I'm saying is that I couldn't be blamed if we would have gotten, like, we would have to run. If we would have had to run, like, just been like, yo, we got to bounce, like, let's go, like, let's run, like, we can't be like, oh yeah, because you're eardrum, because you're black, you can't, you should have never walked in there in the first place. Well, you see what see,
you had the option to leave. You know what I'm saying? You walked in somewhere. Right. You walked in somewhere where you didn't like what was going on.
Right.
And
that easily could have turned into a beating, though. You see what I'm saying? Like, the doorman just lets me in, and they're like, yeah, look at these N-words. Like, they don't even know what's about to happen to them. You see what I mean? Like, and I would have just went in there and just got murdered.
It could, but
downtown Denver.
I mean, sometimes, but it runs curiosity killed the cat. Like, it just runs the risk. You were like, oh, what is this? What's going on?
Yeah,
you didn't know what was happening. You were just being curious. But I mean, my whole assertion was about situations to where we have an expectation. If you just wander into some place, you don't have an expectation. You're just like, oh, what is this? This is a club? This is a party? There is no expectation established for something that you just wander in. Like, you know what I mean? You're just a risk taker, and you're like, yo, I'm gonna do this. Whatever happens, happens. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't really build an expectation of something that's unknown.
Okay, that's fair. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers, man. We talked about capitalism. We talked about patriotism. Yeah. All the isms, really. We talked a little bit about feminism, political injustice. How it's not just one thing that we need to deal with. So it's not just racism. It's our whole state of mind.
Yeah.
It's our social, economic, political, views that make us the people that we are.
Exactly.
And so we have to look at that and really adjust it to a more broad spectrum than just ourselves.
And like you said, I mean, these are all subjects, and this patriotism subject we're talking about, it's a subject, it could be talked about all day. But
all day, every day.
Yeah, all day, every day. But I mean, it's just the number one aspect, and to sum it up, it's just for people to be honest and candid and take accountability. You can't really have true discussion or true progressive discussion where you actually have an intent to reach a conclusion without being able to take accountability, without being fully open and true about what your intentions are and what you believe and what you know. I mean, you have two ears, one mouth. I mean,
I think it's important to realize that your race doesn't represent you, but at the same time, you may not represent your race, or you may not represent your country, or we cling to things that are categories, that are labels. We cling to labels, man.
The race not representing you. While I agree, I can't say definitively, because I mean, the brain is such a complex. It's such a complex organ, right, that we have, that there's no way for me to determine, or anyone to determine, what truly makes up, us, what we're truly composed of. I mean, we can only go off of evidence that's been given. So I mean, while I feel you,
we know why Zach is disagreeing, because he's Zach. Like, subscribe,
hate. Right, negative comments, troll.
Troll.
I would kind of like those.
I mean, you know what? We may probably just respond and make a whole video about your troll.
Oh man,
we can troll all day.
Yeah, man, we could really make a troll video.
We got this fire.
Yeah, I could have a troll conversation with you, like a troll back and forth. But like, I'm I'm all with it. I'm all the way with the streets.
Yeah. Maybe next video we talk about like our personal lives to kind of let them kind of get to know us just a little bit.
Slightly, I ain't gonna dive too much deep into
No, I mean your personal life, like where you went to school, what you did. Like I'm not talking like
to keep that
the
shroud
girlfriend,
mystery.
the girlfriend, who your girlfriend is. Like I don't care about that. What's your middle name, Zach? His name is Zach. I don't know if he introduced himself. I'm a shit.
That era mystery, and we are out.